Oh my gosh. Well, let's talk about our show tonight is about the mental self and spirituality, both. And so what I wanted to talk about is how does somebody recognize a mental disorder, basically? Because when you do this work, I see a lot from all angles here when I do this work as a medium. I also see a lot of mediums that really are not grounded enough and don't have enough mental health behind them,
True.
actually.
Very true.
So I thought it was an important show that James and I wanted to do on mental health. So if I can describe what good mental health is, let me explain it. It's when you have emotional and psychological and social well-being. That is pretty much the definition of of
The
good mental health
psychological and what'd you say, Kelly?
and
And
social well-being. So it really mental health it affects how we act in the world, how we think, how we feel, how we determine stress, how we handle stress, how we relate to others, how we make good choices or how we make choices. And it's really important to always watch your mental health from every stage of your life, from when you're young to through adolescence, through adulthood, and certainly your entire life. And over the course of a life, a lot of things can be factored in to mental health. It could be biological factors, figure in genes, like something genetic, or brain chemistry. Often we'll say, well, that one has some difficult brain chemistry. But also, what affects mental health is trauma and
Mhm.
abuse and life experiences. Okay. And often, and also another one is family history. If you have a family history of mental health problems, that could really set in too. So it's interesting too because with spirituality is a fascinating thing because spirituality influences mental health on an amazing way. So spirituality brings us a higher sense of purpose, of peace. It brings us hope, and it gives our life meaning. And so it's really important for self-esteem, for better confidence. It can help make sense of your life. So spirituality is really
It's
important.
totally what you just said is aces in my life. If I didn't have spirituality,
Mhm.
and I don't know if I'd be alive right now. I just don't. I really
Well,
don't.
well, let
Saved me.
me ask you this, James. No, you're absolutely right. I feel the same way. And in my case, as most people know, I had a sudden traumatic brain injury and I had a sudden, what I'm going to call awakening. Like
Yeah.
quickly, I was seeing things, quickly, things were happening. Now, would I have been called mentally ill by a psychologist or a therapist? Yeah, I probably would have been. Fortunately, I had my mother, who was a psychologist, who knew that I was not mentally ill. She said, I know you were making too much sense here. And but a lot of people do get labeled that as they are having a spiritual awakening. So my question to you, James, is did you ever feel, not you, but did anybody call you to think that you were not in your right mind
Oh,
when you were having these
sure.
experiences?
Sure. I was a
Okay.
little boy in spirit. It was so funny. I was thinking about this earlier today because I am part of the TikTok generation now, just so you know.
Oh,
And
I
watching a
love
few
TikTok.
knew that I'm on TikTok, but I am. And so a lot of people on there don't know really about my background. So I'm creating a video tonight about
Okay.
my background and about, as a little boy, as we see spirit. And a lot of people, it's
Mhm.
just a lot of people are very open now than they ever were. But as a little boy, I had the sense, well, let me just backtrack a little bit, Kelly. This morning, as you know, I went to see a doctor, my yearly checkup.
Right.
In that checkup, there's an assistant there, physician assistant, who writes everything down, the doctor, myself. And I'm talking to this doctor, who's a friend of mine, Mark, and he used to be Louise Hayes' doctor from,
Oh,
Hay.
wow. Wow.
And it just happened that I met him that way because when I first met him, I was like, I know you. And he goes, I know you. And he goes, were you at Louise Hayes Memorial? I said, yes, of course. And that's how anyway, so he's my doctor now. He's a friend of mine. And he said to the girl that was the physician's assistant, this is James M. Praagh, he's written bestsellers about mediumship. He's a spiritual medium. And she said, no, She broke her whole
Mm.
professional. You too. I used to have visions when I was a little girl, and these people used to think I was crazy. Said, "You're not crazy." She goes, "Oh, I know I'm not crazy." And I said, "And it's not crazy that I'm sitting here right in front of you because everything." She goes, "Divine order." I said, "Everything's in divine order." And I think for many people now they're educated about mediumship and
Mhm.
spirituality, and I think this whole movement is much bigger than it ever was. For me personally, Kelly, I always came in. I came in this life with a very strong sense of
I
self.
know.
I really did.
I
I was
know.
abusive family, a codependent type family, and I really kind of helped raise myself. But I always had the sense of survival, and I've always had this sense of I knew myself, which really was incredible. Again, I wouldn't be here if I didn't have that. A lot of people don't have that,
I
right?
know.
And a lot of people don't have to
No.
come back to learn because of that. They have to learn
Right.
about self and identify of self and respecting self, responsible for self.
Right.
And a lot of people don't have the tools to do that, right? You know, but for
Right.
someone else to fill in the void, and they can't find that person
Right.
because they got to do it themselves.
I
Because
know.
otherwise, spiritual bypass, and we can't do that.
No, you
So
can't.
no, and that's part of this learning is the lessons we come back to the schoolroom to learn
Right.
self. And I always say that we're made up of the mental body, the spiritual body, the emotional body, the physical body, of
Yeah.
course, the light body. And I don't know if this is true or not, but something about it. I feel like there's some souls that come back to perfect maybe one body in particular that lifetime. Maybe they'll have mental disorders to help with that
Right.
mental body healing, to fulfillment of that. Maybe there'll be some physicalness challenges that need to fulfill or believe. I don't know. Maybe an emotional. So if we look at that, there could be
Yeah.
some deficits in those specific bodies. I'm just this is
Yeah.
hypothetical, but it feels right to me. So, a question for you. So, no, I believe in myself, but those who are into this world of spirituality and intuitiveness and empath work, I'm going to say number one, it's a lot about responsibility. It's about integrity,
Yeah.
responsibility. And then there are a lot of mediums out there and people intuitives. They want to be well known and have a TV show. And that's the wrong reason to be
Right.
involved in this work.
Right. And they
Totally
have to do the work on themselves.
first.
There is no mental bypass. You just can't
Oh,
because it'll come out in your work. And it's so interesting. When I had my brain injury, I actually had to spend some time on an Indian reservation, a Native American reservation. And what I learned about that being there was I learned that this is going to be a big statement to make, but that there was no such thing as mental illness. It was all where you were in on the continuum. You might be having a lot of anxiety because you hadn't processed a lot of things that you've gone through. You might be suffering from great loss and great depression because you hadn't worked throughout a lot of the things. And I've always thought, and here a woman named Shirley Nijos, I have to read this. She said, my child suffered with bipolar schizophrenia. That's a big one. That's like where the brain is. There's something about the brain that really kind of carries that soul off. And she told me years ago she can't live full term in her body and brain. And I tried, and I would believe that, Shirley. And when I say that, that's a really interesting, that's a tough one. But she said, I tried preparing myself, but how can you? You can't, honey. You can't. She died 4 months ago. I'm really sorry. There's no way you can prepare yourself for that. But I'll say this, that soul, there's something about that schizophrenia, and there's something about bipolar, that the brain, the soul is living on an edge here. And I always thought it was something that could somehow, I mean, I know that we need medication for these things to hold the soul in the body, frankly,
the
because
chemistry, yeah.
I think because of brain chemistry, James, because of brain chemistry. And that's a tough one, a really tough one.
But surely also, I think, Kelly, there might be, and again, here we go,
Yeah.
hypothetical, that that child that came into her,
Yeah.
that was that soul's lesson, and
Yeah.
we do not know that before they came back to the incarnation, that that soul had to fulfill some of fulfillment of that mental body,
Yeah.
and that these other soulmates were
Yeah.
going to help that soul to perfect that, if you will, because I think it's all about
Yeah.
perfecting or getting better. I
Yeah.
really do. So maybe that's part of it. The best thing, well, I know it sounds weird to say this, but thank God that that soul didn't have to stay around school for that long to go through all these
Well,
years and years.
it's so difficult. It's so
Really hard.
difficult. Yeah.
And that's and if that soul gets get its lessons done in a short time, God bless it. God bless it because it's
Wow.
hard.
Yeah.
It's a different way to look at it. Today, my soul
Yeah.
care. Well, we talked about somebody asked about a question about protection. You know, should I protect myself when I close down or up? I'm saying, well, just posing that question, you're saying that there's something you need to be protected of. So it's how you
Right.
look at it mentally. There's not
Right.
necessarily something you need to be protected of. It's all about love. But
Right.
humans create a lot of FEAR, fear, false ego, real, or
Right.
limitations, if you will, right?
Right.
Limitations with fear-based limitations. We don't have to be like that. It's all about love. So there's nothing to protect yourself. The only thing we got to protect ourselves is what we think, our
Oh,
thoughts.
oh,
Thoughts
absolutely.
become reality.
Oh,
See?
and this is something, this from Lori Leah. I have to read this. She says, my parents took me to a minister, then a psychiatrist. Then they've since apologized and now come to me for my thoughts. Lori, I feel your pain on that one. I mean,
Same,
and
same.
that's really having that spiritual breakthrough. There's something about that that it's having the spiritual breakthrough where
And we have
people
to
don't know what
show
to do.
well that we're teaching others in our group, whether it's your
Yeah.
parents, whether it's your siblings, whether it's your partners.
Yeah.
We're teaching other souls as well. It's not just about us; it's about them as well. I know a lot of beings that come through physical, physical or mental disorders
Mhm.
that they're teaching others in that group about compassion or patience or
Right.
kindness. There are lessons to be learned there.
Right, right. Lucky Star says, I suffer from depression and anxiety. I have to take an antidepressant, which has helped me tremendously. My doctor knows that I'm spiritual and totally supports it. I'm glad to hear that, Lucky, that your doctor supports that you are spiritual. And if you need an antidepressant, some people do. So, I mean, I am pro medicine if you need it, but I also am very pro spiritual.
I'm going to be a little bit on the fence here, which is probably unexpected. In that, I think that it's okay. I mean, these chemicals, these medicines, right, were created or given, if you will, to scientists through a spirit.
Yeah.
So these inventions, these ways of helping physical beings
Yep.
with brain disorders, brain chemistry, with these chemicals and medicine is okay if it balances that out.
Yeah.
I think anything that's abused,
Oh,
then it's a problem. And whether it's
totally.
pharmaceutical companies abusing it or the patients abusing it or whoever, then we get into a problem. But I was on anti-anxiety or antidepressant stuff. I was when things got really difficult for me and it was just out of control, or there were thoughts of ending one's life or whatever it might be, depression. There could be bouts of depression, and sometimes you have to
Yeah.
reach out and say, I just can't. I need help here. And I think it's
Right.
okay to ask for help. I think that's
Oh,
part of
I
the
I
the
think
human.
so too. Absolutely it is. And you may need some for a period of time.
And
Um,
especially when you're a sensitive person, everybody, you got to be very, very mindful that you're sensitive, so you don't vibrate to the same that everybody else in this world does necessarily.
right.
It's got to be
Um,
just be mindful and aware of it. That's again
it's
what
so
spirituality.
totally. Kate Daniel says this is a very important topic. It is. She says, Kelly, so much of mental illness is misunderstood. And that's my point. It really is. And our spiritual gifts can really assist us finding wellness. So, so true. I mean, meditation, how I was able to I had huge anxiety back in the day. Meditation, meditation, meditation. Being out in nature.
And
For
my
me,
friend,
that worked.
and for a good friend of mine last night, I was on the telephone, and she's had a rough time with heart stuff going on, and
Mhm.
she goes, "You told me something." I said, "What has really helped you with your arrhythmia or whatever?" And she goes, "Well, it's something you told me." I said, "What's that?" She goes, breath work." She goes, "I breathe."
Right.
She's pacing of the breath, breathing in, feel like 3 beats, and out, and 5, 2 beats out in. And she goes, "And I do that, for about 2 or 3 minutes, and I feel calm again." And that's really
Right.
is bring yourself to that altered state of consciousness where you're
Right.
balanced.
Right. So true, James. Renee Hounsell says, Hi, Renee. She says, I've heard many times that spiritual people are being very hard on themselves, that because they are spiritual, they should be able to heal on their own, that they should know better. It's stigma, it seems. Oh, Renee, that's the truth. That's is
And it's the same thing about, you should not be charging for your gifts. There are big gifts you should be sharing
right.
with everybody. He
Right.
said, well, we're in a human existence. And if we're in a human existence and we have to pay for rent or to pay for groceries, then fine. But if you have to live and you have to earn a living, again, not abusing, not
Right.
abusing.
Right.
What it is. I've heard that too about, well, you're a healer, you should heal. We're having a human experience. So
Yes.
abilities, but we still got to be human. We're here in the school too to go through the classes. We haven't skipped the classes. We're going through it like everybody else. We're all
Okay.
human.
I had a human experience Friday night.
Certainly did, Kelly.
I did. And then so we're all having human experiences here. Um, I
And a
want
little liquid would really help with that.
oh
Yeah,
my God. Okay,
I find there are times that I have to calm myself down with a glass of wine or a martini, whatever.
That's very true.
And just like after I'm working, sometimes I have to come right down, and I'm just so as I just put myself right down, and it's fine. Again, no, don't abuse things, but just again, it's balance to everything. I
Mhm.
think one thing I was about spirituality too is people. I don't know, like that comment about a heal thyself. When someone calls themselves mediumistic or spiritual, people immediately throw them up on a pedestal or a mountain or whatever.
I
It's like
know.
we're just it's just an aspect of well, everyone is spiritual. It's
Mhm.
just an aspect of who we are and how much we're going to open up to that part of our believing in ourselves, loving ourselves,
Right.
having that relationship with your soul. That's the way I look at it.
Oh, I
Have
love that. And
it
that
with
really actually brings really good grounding, James, and good mental health, having that relationship with your soul.
100%. I
Yeah.
dance and sing. I've danced offs in my house with
Mhm.
friends while we just play videos and music, and it's so great. It's great to be
Right?
that little kid within. You and I do that all the time.
Oh,
We
yeah.
just laugh, and you have to laugh.
You
Life's too
have to.
short. Have fun. You
You
have to have
absolutely have to. Yeah. You
Hey,
have to
happy
find
fun and
joy.
you have to find joy. It's part of the journey.
Right.
Journey. The word journey. It
I
is part of the
love that.
it is part
Okay, Mandy Souther. She found herself again after bouts with addiction and hospitalizations for suicidal ideation. I'm sorry, honey. Now I'm a shadow worker helping people transmute trauma. Wow, Mandy, that's amazing. I've never heard that expression before as a shadow worker, but anybody that's helping somebody with trauma is a big deal. Do you know that, James? Are you
Debbie
familiar with
Ford.
that?
Debbie Ford worked
Did
with
she
shadow
talk with work with the shadow?
shadow self. All of her work was trauma and shadow self. Sure. Debbie Ford worked
Wow. So
with that.
maybe, Mandy, then you would have had those bouts with addiction, so you would actually understand how this works. You'd be the perfect person then to go in and to help with this.
Well, it's interesting because when people pass over, but there are many people pass over, and let's say it's a suicide, let's say it's a car accident, whatever it might be, and they would say, "I'm helping those over who had died the same way because I understand how they passed because I went through that. So who better to help them over than myself? So I'll know
Mhm.
their first thoughts when they come over the side, whether it's suicide or whether it's an accident, whether it's a fast passing or a long one. I've been through that, so I'm one of the helpers. I'm one of the rescuers because I understand what they're going through. So if you can do
Right.
that in the lifetime here." And go through the addictions. They're not punishments. These are all lessons to
Right.
learn. So even the hospitalization, the addictions. This is the addiction planet, by the way. This is the
Oh,
planet of
yeah.
right. So these are
Mhm.
things you got to learn to let go of. What takes importance in your life? What do you give importance to? What do you give?
Yeah,
Where do you give your power to? What do you give your power to? Where is your power? What do you give it to?
right.
Self or outside yourself.
So true. That is so true. So
Yeah.
Danielle Franzi says, "How do I get rid of panic attacks and depression and anxiety? I've been suffering for 26 years and I'm pretty much hopeless at this point." So, my question to you, Danielle, would be what kind of spiritual life do you have? What kind of spiritual life? What are your belief systems with that? Because anxiety and depression, and it leads to hopelessness. So you have to really kind of stop from this moment, or start from this moment on, and give your permission, yourself permission to feel good, to feel whole. Just stop this. And James was talking about breathing earlier. Take stopping yourself, James, and with gratitude for
Yeah.
simple
And,
things.
and Danielle, giving yourself permission to be
Yeah.
okay. Giving yourself permission that you're good the way you are. I
Yes.
got it very, very much when Kelly was talking that I got really strong trying to live up to someone else's expectations your whole life. And
Mm,
that's trap for a lot of us. We try to live
yeah.
with respect with parents or family or society, trying to live what they want us to just to be loved. We will never have it's elusive because no one can love you more than you can love yourself. No one. So I would say, Danielle, to really
So
start
true.
let go of those expectations of other people. You are who you are. That's all that you are. You're perfect the way you are. Everyone is perfect just the way you are. And a lot of it's mental. It's that mental part of ourselves thinking, thinking,
I
thinking, thinking.
know. It's
You got to calm down the
futurizing,
fire.
futurizing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a fire in the brain there. You have to calm down that
Mhm.
fire, cool it down, cool it down. Whether it's meditation or walking, running, exercise, cooking, doing something fun, cool that fire down.
And Danielle, I would go to traumahealing.org, traumahealing.org. And they have some wonderful somatic experience therapists there that would be really probably great for you to help you with anxiety and depression. Well, we'll see everybody next week, James. I'll see you next
Thank you,
week.
Kelly. See
All
you
right.
around the org.
Thank you. Bye,
Thanks,
everybody. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
You've been listening to Both Sides Now and Beyond, featuring spiritual medium and master teacher James Van Praagh and spiritual medium and psychotherapist Kellee White.
That was great. Maybe we changed some lives.
And maybe opened up some minds.
Which way do I turn?
Right. I mean left.